Hey, my name is Justin Beck. I am a music producer under the alias Lewis Beck. I make house and techno music, and I release music on Todd Terry's in-house records and the Dallas underground label Audiophile Deep. I'm here today at 343 Labs, and I'm going to talk to you about how to make your drums more powerful using parallel saturation. All right, so I've set up a very kind of intense drum groove here. Actually, I've made the entire groove out of kick drums. This is something I've been really into lately. And so it's, for me, a way that I can get my drums to be really powerful already without having to worry too much, about whether or not they're really strong. So I'm just gonna play the loop for you real quick that I have going here. So, it's just a pretty standard break beat. And there's already like a decent amount of harmonic information happening there. But what I'm going to look to do actually is to create a number of sends that I am then going to put different styles of distortion or saturation on and blend them back in. And what's going to happen is the drums are going to get tighter, punchier, and more colorful. And this is going to allow my other elements of the mix to flow around it more seamlessly and allow them to be present and strong in the track, which is one of the hardest things to do in electronic music. So you'll also see that I have grouped all of them into just a group called drums. Now, the reason that I'm doing that is because I want to take this processing and apply it to all of them at once. And the whole idea, in fact, is to actually get all of the little dynamic inconsistencies from each level and difference of the drums and each kick drum to trigger the distortions a little bit differently. So down here at the bottom, I have 2 return tracks. I'm actually going to create 2 more, and in total, I'm going to send this to 4 different styles of distortion. So I'm going to start by using one of my absolute favorite distortion plugins called Decapitator from Sound Toys. And I'm going to put that on the return track 1. Or return track A, rather. And I happen to be a huge fan of this T setting, which is modeling a trident console. And so for this technique, what I'm going to do is I am going to take the send and drive it 100%. So I'm turning it all the way up to 0 into this saturator, into the decapitator. And I'm going to solo the decapitator so I can hear what that sounds like. So as you can hear, just turning it on doesn't really sound like that much has changed. So what I am going to do is I'm going to turn on what's called punish mode, which is going to increase the amount of harmonics and really get it more into distortion than saturation. And so you can hear pretty immediately how aggressive that becomes. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up the drive knob. Now you're probably thinking that is insanely aggressive and is a complete deviation from the initial tone of the track. But the key here is not to actually balance the distortion into it so that we hear it so much, but it's really going to be to just blend it in slightly so that we pick up on all those nice little juicy artifacts and get them to lock in with the transients. So I'm going to take the solo off the decapitator send now. I'm going to turn it all the way down to negative infinity on the send itself, and I'm going to turn it up until I just hear a little bit of a change. So you can hear now that the drums start to jump forward a little bit, that the edges of them become a little crispier and more sizzly. And so that alone is already a really cool thing and a positive thing to do. So doing this once is already a great idea. But now I'm going to do it again. And I'm actually going to do it again with the decapitator. But the cool thing about the decapitator is that it has 5 different distortion or saturation settings, and they're actually radically different from one another. So for this one, I am going to use just setting A. And this time I'm actually not going to put on punish. I'm just going to drive aggressively with normal saturation. So again, I'm going to take the send from the drum group and send it 100%. And I'm going to solo this channel. Now, it's a very similar type of distortion, but it's not quite the same. This one's a little less bulky and a little more concentrated. And so the idea here is that I'm actually trying to select different styles of distortion, different styles of saturation, and then blend them all together to give this much broader impression of this single unified, extremely dense and beefy tone. So yet again, I'm going to go onto the send itself, take it and drag it all the way down to negative infinity and blend it back in until I just hear a difference, just hear things reinforce. Again, we're not going for complete tonal change. There we go. All right, so as much as I love the Decapitator, there are a lot of other saturation plugins that are also awesome. So next, I'm going to use one from a slightly lesser known company called Positive Grid. And they have this tube compressor that happens to have unbelievable tube stage saturation modeling in it, which is really, really incredible to use for this technique. Again, going on to the group, sending it 100%, and I'm going to solo the channel. Now, with this compressor in particular, you have to drive the input gain quite a bit to achieve the saturation. So as you can see, what's really cool about this is I can actually model the different stages of the compressor on different types of analog components. So I'm going to take the output stage tube and set it to EL34. I just like that one. I'm going to keep the input stage tube the same as it is, but as you can see, I have other options. And this ceramic capacitor has a tendency to get things really crunchy, which I like. And then I'm going to change the transformer into fat style because after all, we're trying to make huge drums. So I'm going to listen to this soloed send again, and I'm going to crank this input gain. Now, one thing that you can probably hear is that this is sucking up way more of the low end energy than the other two forms of saturation distortion we're doing. And this is a beneficial thing because what's going to happen from this now is I'm going to be able to really, really get those transients, which again are the loudest first point. It's the point of impact on those drums. And I want them to really smack. And the reason for that is so that they cut through on any sound system that I listen on, whether it be a phone, a club, or a car, right? So again, unsolo the send, turn it to negative infinity, and blend it back in. So again, what we're looking for here is not so much to completely transform the tone, but really we're trying to essentially get the most out of the harmonics that are already existing there by exciting them with saturation. It's in very many ways kind of like modeling what the equivalent of running, stems through really high-end analog gear and getting that sort of nice grit from overdriving the tube stages would get you. So then finally, I'm going to throw on the SSL native bundles saturator, which is pretty awesome. So the SSL saturator is pretty cool because it has this ability to blend between second order and third order harmonics. And for a distortion nerd like myself, this is something really fun. So I'm going to send it, I'm going to solo the channel, and I'm going to absolutely crank this. Now you can hear that this one is getting way, way loud, so I have to gain stage it, which just means that I have to turn down the output gain so that the initial volume that I'm coming in at remains. There we go. Now what I love about this one so much is that even though we can hear the distortion happening, it also is very smooth and kind of clean sounding, as weird as that sounds. It's not a normal way we describe distortion. But what's very much happening is we're keeping the rubberiness of that low end without really making it too boxy. And so that's why I'm going to use this as my fourth and final one. So I'm going to press play and blend it back in now. All right. So if I minimize this group now and I select all of my sends and then mute them, that's with none of them on, and that's with them on. So I hope that this tutorial was helpful to you, and you can see the benefits of using this technique for making your drums more powerful and more harmonic. Again, my name is Justin Beck, also under the artist name Lewis Beck. You can find my music on Spotify, Apple Music, Beatport, really anywhere. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and big thanks to 343 Labs for hosting me.